Welcome to a game between PaulBellow here in red. He started with Tank Foundry and he's against potatolord56. Starting with, let's see what potatolord stock is, also a Tank Foundry. So PaulBellow requested this replay. Um, he wanted to know if he raided enough and what he could do better in general. So you can see here both players started in Kodachi. Potatolords has chosen a more forward spot. This is going to allow him to expand faster, although PaulBellow's start will be more defensive. You can see there's a slight incline here to go up to this high ground, and then this ramp is pretty defensible. It only has two ways up, so you can easily block it off, especially against like tank factories. Although jump bots are pretty viable on this map, so you could fear that. Here's the first engagement, and you should be careful chasing enemy Kodachis. They have a retreat advantage. When enemies going towards them, they're able to fire at incoming enemies without them firing back. So that's you basically get more effective range, and that's why you have to be so careful taking engagement. Like, as long as you're driving away from the enemy Kodachi and it's not at pretty close, you can always get it. It's pretty easy actually, if you just run away. But it's gonna be hard for Potatolord to find something because, yeah, PaulBellow started far back. And PaulBellow is gonna come into this. A Lotus turret and a Welder, that should be pretty safe against two Kodachis, especially when Kodachis are low in health. And PaulBellow, does he realize this? No, he loses a Kodachi. That's, yeah, if he keeps some more attention, you wouldn't have lost that Kodachi. And here comes the enemy Kodachi, and you have a Lotus turret and a Picket. Personally, I don't like Pickets too much against tanks, because, yeah, Kodachis and Blitzes have a lot of health, so they're not gonna kill even a single raider, while Lotus turret have a lot of health, and they will last more and deal more damage. So I prefer Pickets against tanks. And as you can see, this Kodachi is kind of annoying to deal with. Like, Potatolord is building a Lotus turret in a pretty, not a good position really. And he's even sending a whole Ogre that's 500 metal just chasing this one Kodachi. So yes, by being here, this Kodachi is taking up a lot of resources. And at this point, I think, yeah, you're expanding. You have your expanding commander on high priority. That is good. But I think, considering how defensible this starting position, just getting a Lotus turret there, and tanks driving up is going to be really slow upwards. Like, getting a Lotus turret, this one covers, yeah, almost covers the whole ramp. But yeah, when the tanks are going upwards, they're losing a lot of speed. So yeah, trying to traverse that is going to mean that a Lotus turret will easily beat a Kodachi. And here you're making a way too big terraform. And Potatolord is sneaky here and even gets a metal extractor kill without even losing anything, being able to hide behind the hill you just built, PaulBellow. So, yeah. Yeah, this is a bit excessive, like, this is a lot of metal spent. It's even really far back, so I don't know. Yeah. I mean, building two Lotus turret would have been just as fine, I think. In most situations, like going for Wraith Stardust, that's really like, I mean, it defends against a lot. But yeah, I would try to, instead of paying so much for defenses, I would try to keep a mobile army of like Kodachis or Blitzes. Ogres are also pretty good against tank mirrors. They shut down Ogres and Blitzes, I mean Kodachis and Blitzes pretty well. But yeah, I would also focus more on expanding. Like, the thing with tanks is if you make welders, they have a lot of build power, meaning they can meaning they can expand them and build up defenses pretty easily as you need them. And getting a radar here is a good position, so you know when you see incoming units. I also like the choice of going for a lightning rifle if you're upgrading a commander and against tanks, because being able to stun the enemy units means you have more time to damage them. And there's also no spam that the tank player can send against your commander, so you don't really need splash damage or fast fire rates. So I like the lightning gun against tanks. But yeah, at this point, I guess you're getting out expanding. Like the enemy has 2 positions in these positions. The enemy is just expanding way faster than you, just with the commander. So yeah, building all this defense. Yeah, you feel real defensive when you can do mostly the same thing with mobile units. Also, if you could build a Stardust on the edge of the ramp, that would be a little bit better, because then you get more range advantage from the height. And blitzes, they counter Kodachis pretty well. And here comes the enemy ogre. Will you stay in range of the enemy ogre? No. I think it's auto skirmishing here, like in this situation when enemy ogres is distracted and low on health, lower than your own ogre, you want to manually order it to move the same way as the enemy ogre, or at least give an attack command on the enemy ogre, not let your units skirmish automatically, because then the enemy might slip away. Getting a kill on that ogre would have been nice for you. So good, you are having some more cons to expand with there. Like small things, this position of this caretaker is weird because it's in front of the stinger, meaning it's gonna die almost immediately when the enemy engages this position. So yeah. That's a small thing. The enemy is really slow at expanding here for some reason. The reason I speed up the game is because, I don't know, replays tend to be, if I don't speed them up, they're played at a slower speed than it says. It happens every now and then. I'm not sure why. Yeah, so at this point you're getting kind of out-expanded by your opponent. You can see here the enemy is ahead. Although your enemy has failed to use all their metal and excessed a bit, so I guess you're still even in metal used almost. Not that far behind. Ogres, they deal with light defenses easily, so they're decent raiding force. Yeah. And that's a nice raid by Potatolord, just avoiding the Weller and the Minotaurs. And Minotaurs, they really struggle hitting fast-moving units, so they're not good at defense against raiders, really. But yeah, a thing you can do is that you select the building and then you hold Alt. If you select the building and then you hold Alt, you can raise it like this. Then you don't have to create the hill yourself. That's a much more efficient way to create raised turrets. On this army, here comes 2 ogres. That's pretty strong. You have a stinger here that might save you, because otherwise your commander might be dead. But as you can see, the Faraday is out of the range and not really helping. And at this point you should really be moving your commander backwards, because yeah, taking that much damage is not good. Yeah, you were a bit slow to react with the commander there and retreating there. Also, you have some idle units here that should have been here protecting your commander. Yeah, so that's important to check out. Know the enemy units that are coming in and retreat your commander, or build more turrets. Like, you had a lot of time that you saw that unit on radar to react and build turrets. You get this now, that's pretty good. And here you're going for a surrounder against the artillery, that's pretty nice. You will probably get the artillery. But Minotaurs, they're pretty effective against Ogre because they have so much health to tank the damage from them that they can deal with Ogres cost effectively. Like even when these low health Ogres engage in this Ogre, you have to run away so you don't take too much damage. And the automatic skirmishing will do that mostly for you. On the other hand, you lose these 2 Ogres here. So yeah, you spent about 1,500 metal to raid these spots. Kind of worth it. But you also lost this position and your commander. Like if you had the enemy engage you with basically 2 Ogres and a Minotaur. So yeah. But you also had enough units to defend here. Also that Faraday was kind of too forward, so it didn't really do anything. It died before the enemy could enter the range of the Stinger. So that's also a thing to consider in the layout of your defenses. And at this point you're pretty far behind. Like yeah, total value you're almost halfway behind the enemy. And that's usually a bad position to be in. Yeah, so the way that you can raise a building is you select the building and then you press Alt and then you drag middle mouse. You use the middle mouse wheel button to move a turret up or down or the building up and down. This is pretty good. That way you don't have to manually place the Stardust. Like a raised Stardust against tanks is pretty good. Like it's good against Ogres, it's good against Blitz, it's good against Kodachis. Decent against Minotaurs as well. So yeah, it's not a bad turret to make a raised Stardust in a tank mirror. It's a pretty good unit. But it's basically yeah, you're almost up at the cost of a Stinger then. So a Stinger has a bit more range. So yeah, I usually prefer the Stinger. So you're gonna try to reclaim this, and this is good. This is a lot of reclaim for you. And the enemy is attacking with just 2 ogres and a minotaur, and that's a bit weak. And you have a local superiority, so if you're quick now, you can even get your artillery. And the artillery is gonna auto skirmish. And you can see here that this minotaur is gonna struggle to hit this blitz, and the blitz can easily get his emissary. Yeah, you can see the blitz just dodging all the projectiles of the Minotaur. Minotaurs really struggle to hit raiders. Meanwhile, you won that engagement also, so that puts you back pretty well. But still, the enemy still has both corners and this super mechs here that is giving 3.5 metal. That's the most. That's the mechs that gives the most metal on this map. On Sun map, that's a thing. Like this map gives, yeah, almost as much as 2 other mechs. It's a feature on some maps that usually maps give around like 2 metal per second, but on this map there's also one max that gives 3.5 per second. And yeah, this is a pretty good engagement for you, although not chasing the Kodachi like that. And these units are kinda low health. I would probably repair them. Like you might lose them all against this Minotaur. And that would be a pretty bad exchange for you. Oh, and you're getting surrounded as well. So yeah, now you're gonna lose your whole army. That's the thing to consider when you're using Minotaurs, is that it's hard to make cost with Minotaurs if you don't repair them. So yeah, generally after a fight you want to send them back and repair them. A thing that you also can consider doing is setting a retreat field. A retreat field is pretty good. You can place it down, and then you can set the units to retreat at like 30%, but you have to set down a retreat field first. Yeah, at this point you're still pretty far behind. Oh. If you're paying attention now, you should either be retreating or engaging this ogre. And banshees are gonna suffer a lot against ogres, so you need to kill the ogre first. Otherwise, your locusts are just gonna die. You're trying to get the artillery, which is a good idea, but you're also losing a lot of units trying to do that. Killing the ogres first, if there's only a few, should be the priority in such situations. Harpies are pretty good because they slow down the enemy, and then you can easily run them down with other units and get a finish. And you can see here, this ogre is pretty low health. So you probably want to retreat that and repair it. Like you can see, yeah, it's pretty easy to lose ogre even to a lone minotaur like this. And now your force is probably going to get surrounded and finished off. Or you're retreating in time, maybe. Will this slow on this unit make your... No, it doesn't make your ogre CLI. And you managed to finish off that ogre. Yeah, I would recommend binding retreat zone to something. Yeah. And at this point, I'm wondering, why haven't you expanded to this max? There has been no contest over this max. You could just have sent a con there to take it. Also, to consider your position is that you should basically try to hold the half of the map. If you can hold half of the map and deny some access from your opponent, you are having the economic advantage. And having the economic advantage means that you're able to build a bigger army. So that is a question to ask yourself, like, why are you not killing this mechs, and why are you not... Pretty good engagement so far for you, but yeah, you're gonna retreat at Revenant. That was a pretty good engagement, you didn't lose any units, and now you're repairing, that's good. But now you run in and lose against this Etten, not too good. And this ogre wasn't fully repaired yet. But you might get this artillery at least. Maybe. Yes, you get it, nice. Yeah, but ogres don't do too well against minotaurs, so yeah, you have to be more careful against minotaurs. Yeah, I would recommend binding retreat zone so you can set your units on like 30% retreat, it is pretty good to have. Especially when you're using tanks. You only set it for like minotaurs and maybe ogres as well. And you're pushing this position, that's pretty good. But still, you're losing units a lot of the time, and the enemy has more economy than you. Like, the enemy has units over here, and they're even trying to build a paladin. It's almost finished. Oh, really? Yeah, that's 8,000 metal that that's the enemy's been using. That's not here. Like, if we look at the army value now, yeah, he's still even ahead, besides having 8,000 metal spent into that paladin. So yeah, again, consider why you don't have this mix and why you haven't taken this mix, and consider where's half the map. This is not half the map. This would be half the map. Or this would be half the map. So like, you should try to have at least half the map. And if you don't have it, and you like, have you even scouted these positions? Yeah, after like 20 minutes, yeah, expect the enemy to have these positions if you haven't even scouted them. Like, preferably, you should even harass them with a few raiders before they're going up. You should be there scouting and see when the enemy is trying to expand there, and try to prevent them from expanding there, basically. But I don't think you ever attack the corners in this game, so yeah. And you never even built radar to scout the corners either, so yeah. The enemy is not using their army too well, as you can see here, just losing an artillery, just driving straight into your army. And at this point, yeah, you have a pretty big, yeah, I think you almost have the army advantage now. Oh, except that the paladin just finished. Look at how difference, how much the enemy has spent on that paladin. How much of a difference that's gonna make. You're a bit spread out here. I guess it's the auto skirmishing. But yeah, going back and repairing like this is good. Yeah. Although you could also have, instead of having like caretakers they spread out, you could also just be repairing with welders. It doesn't take much more micro to use if you use attack ground, attack move, they're gonna repair and reclaim at the same time. So it's basically the same. Or you can use patrol if you can use patrol in an area, and welders will also repair and stuff. And here comes a paladin, and you don't have an army to face this paladin. Like, yeah, you can run down a paladin with less units than it's worth, but yeah, you don't have enough value for that. Like 3,000 in tanks is not gonna do it. They're gonna get stunned, and they're gonna struggle to get in range. Here comes some reinforcements now, and a paladin, it is called a range support strider for a reason. It doesn't really have good damage, it has a lot of health, and it has quite a bit of range with its laser beam, its tachyon beam. So yeah, even though you have the much smaller army than his, like maybe you spent 5,000 trying to attack this, you almost killed it. Like, you got it down to less half than health, and with a few more units, you would probably have gotten it. Like, if you have like 5,000 in blitzes and just overrun it, you can kill it. But yeah, having that paladin retreat is gonna mean you're gonna be really far behind. If we look at the value here, the army value, yeah, that is really far behind. Like a good counter to exposed paladins is ultimatums. But at this point, yeah, even if you killed it, you would probably be too far behind. Like an ultimatum is a good unit to counter a paladin with, so that's something. No, that's fine. Basically. And paladins are also decent against tanks, but yeah, paladin ultimatums are kind of decent against tank, but they were just nerfed, so using them against tanks is a bit more risky. I'm not sure why you built its forward strider hub. Grizzlies are also pretty good against tanks, although they can also be run down on flat ground. Your trades has been so-so. A little better now, late game. Yeah, not too good. Minotaurs and Ogres have a pretty distinct retreat advantage in that they struggle to hit units moving away from them. So that's also a pretty important thing in this matchup. That it means you need to take more care how you try to kill the enemy units, because they're gonna use their retreat advantage to just escape. Yeah, I would recommend binding a retreat zone to a position. Um, like you can, I think you can find my hotkeys, commands. Yeah, you, it's add retreat zone in hotkeys, commands targeted, and that means you can place down its circles of retreat zones, and then you can set your units to retreat at a certain percentage. For tank units, I would recommend 30%. That means that you're going to automatically retreat back to the position that you set. And you put it next to some caretakers or some patrolling welders. And yeah, you can keep your tanks alive much more that way. And here comes the paladin again, and yeah, it's fully repaired now, and you don't have that much units to deal with it. Although you could potentially run it down with ducks. Like running down a paladin with raiders is one of the most cost-effective ways to counter it. Like an alternative counter to a exposed paladin like this is Gnats. You stun it and then it can't move, and then you just kill it with whatever. Against a lone paladin like this with no support, maybe like 10 Gnats would be enough. If it has some more support, yeah, you need like 20 Gnats. Gnats are really good at stunning units. They're an anti-heavy unit basically. Yeah, they're called anti-heavy EMP drone. They're really good at like tying down paladins that have no support. Gnats have little health though, so they're gonna die really easily to like AA and enemy raiders and riots and stuff like that. But yeah, that is something to consider when the enemy has such an exposed paladin like this. Like, this is not how you're supposed to use the paladin. Uh, a better player would build Gnats and just stun it. Or yeah, or have a ultimatum built and that just kills it. Yeah. So yeah, those are the things to consider in this game. Yeah. So consider trying to take half the map. You were falling behind almost from the start of the game. Um, like try to analyze the map and try to get at least half the map. Like yeah, try to get at least half the map and deny mexes for the enemy, and you're winning economically basically. But now you never scouted the corners, and you never took disc mechs that were never contested. This is a super mix. It's really good if you overdrive it, but overdriving it this far in the map is kind of hard. Although, yeah. So yeah, and yeah, like you tried to raid with 3 ogres, and that's a lot of ogres. Like they did raid, like 5 mixes, but yeah, probably you could have done the same with like 4 kodachis or something. And when you were raiding up here, you lost your commander to your defenses that were kind of not built to support each other. You had this caretaker far forward, and then you had this Faraday that didn't get any support from the Stinger that was back here. So yeah, 2 spread out defenses at this position. And then you didn't really react, and your commander was 2 damage before you reacted, and you lost it. You lost his whole base. So yeah. Those are my tips for you. But yeah, you still, yeah, in this game you still managed pretty well with your army. You killed more than you lost, so that's an improvement. Good luck and have fun.